Well, we can keep talking. It's just going to be a live stream for everyone to hear. That's cool, though, man. Yeah, glad to hear that.
Hope I'll get to relax a little bit. So, you're walking your hours? How many do you have?
I haven't logged it in 2 weeks, but so I just need to go back. But I think last I saw it was around like 580, 600, somewhere there.
That's something you've completed?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for LCPT.
Yeah.
For LPC, no, but for LCPT. It's the first license I'm going for.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
Yeah, just knock it out.
yeah, I'm trying to, man. It's a process.
Yeah.
So I think at the rate I'm going at, I might be done by this time next year, around there.
Are we at time? I'm not digital.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Yep, 5 o'clock.
All right.
Good evening. It is so lovely to see you all. Welcome to Belmont University. Welcome to the Tennessee Association of Pastoral Therapists Annual Business Meeting and Interfaith Soul Care Conference. Does everybody have a copy of our meeting agenda, which is a one-page format, and last year's meeting minutes, which is stapled to your financial report at the back? While we're getting that arranged, there are a few folks I want to be sure and thank. Dr. Janet Hicks has been coordinating and hosting through Belmont. You'll get to meet her after our dinner. Kaylin Curry has been hugely helpful in working out all the details and logistics for the program. I also want to be sure and thank Ryan Fraser and David Thornton for all of their hard work behind the scenes putting this together. So without further ado, we will go ahead and jump into our business meeting. Our first item is to approve last year's meeting minutes. So take a moment and scan through there to see if you have any questions, anything that doesn't make sense. And when someone feels ready, may I have a motion that we approve last year's meeting minutes? Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, the motion carries. And the next thing that I would like to request your vote of approval for is our treasurer's report. And Ernst Rogers is going to come and present that.
Second.
And her role is to say, all in favor, say aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Burns. You've done a great job. And that reminds me to say also, you might notice our expenses for this meeting are a little lower than usual, due in part to Belmont's generosity in providing our dinner shortly. So many thanks to Belmont for that. Okay, our next item is to vote on our proposed tenant identity statement. You might remember that last year we appointed a task force, the Vision and Identity Task Force, to work on this, and David Thornton was the chair. And on the back of your meeting agenda, you'll see a copy of the text. It's the same thing that's been printed in all of your recent newsletters, so hopefully it's not a new document for you, but we would like to officially present it to you and ask for your vote. Before I turn it over to David, I also want to mention that, as with many things, this is a living document. It does not mean that if we approve this today, it can never be edited or amended, but this is our best collaborative effort at a starting point to go ahead and publicize if you choose. So David, would you like to present it?
Good evening, great to be with you. I want to thank Dick Brule, Carolyn Cooper Muro, Ryan Fraser, Carolyn Smith-Goings, and Tom Knowles Bagwell, Bruce Rogers Vaughn for participating in conversations that led to crafting this identity statement. We felt it was very important to get something up on our website so that people could get a crystallized idea of who we are and what our purpose is. And if you don't mind, even though you can read, I know you can, in the spirit of ritual and declaiming, I want to read this aloud so that we can hear the living sense of what we're saying. Professional holistic care for suffering souls. At the Tennessee Association of Pastoral Therapists, we bring all of who we are, heart, mind, body, and spirit, to care for suffering souls. And we invite those who wish to become more adept in this work to join us. We and our clients are women, men, non-binary, queer, straight allies, white, and people of color from diverse faith traditions, including none. We have a variety of board-approved licenses or are pre-licensed professionals and students. We approach our vocation with three things in focus: clinical, pastoral, therapy. Clinical. As clinicians, we bring recognized principles, methods, and procedures from the contemporary psychotherapy community to our work with individuals, couples, families, and groups. We seek to treat the whole person, looking at psychodynamics, interpersonal dynamics, and spiritual dynamics. We are serious about understanding and applying the most appropriate theories and evidence modalities in our care for our patients and clients, and we seek to stay informed and on the forward edge of research and practice. Pastoral. The pastoral aspect of our work draws on our faith community's traditions of care and counseling. In Jewish and Christian scriptures, pastoral historically refers to shepherds who cared for the land and its inhabitants. Shepherds addressed the needs of those who were hurting and in danger. They spoke the truth to power, named injustice, and worked to relieve suffering, binding and tending the wounds of those in pain. While the pastoral shepherd image originated in Hebrew scriptures, we believe this identity belongs to all therapists who care for those who suffer, all whose focus is on health of soul. Therapy. Therapy comes from an ancient Greek word, therapia, that means healing. The goal of clinical pastoral therapists is nothing less. Our methodology is clinical, and our desired outcome is healing and restoration of the human soul and spirit. TNAPT is committed to social justice. We believe wholeness is experienced only when we are interrelated with ourselves, with others, the community, the earth, and the transcendent. For us, spirituality is not merely a therapeutic tool to reduce suffering. It is the path we walk with the clients and patients we serve. At the Tennessee Association of Pastoral Therapists, we are professionally trained to walk this path with all of who you are. We welcome all who are joining us. The leadership team met earlier in the year to review and approve this statement, and now it is up to you to consider it and give it your approval. Thank you for your attention. Question?
Are you open to any other, I have one thought for addition of a sentence. The health of, under pastoral, the last clause, all whose focus is on the health of soul. If even one sentence, soul being.
Yes,
Like
as said,
like a short sentence.
it's a living document. This is not
Oh,
if
okay,
you approve it
okay,
and it will
okay,
change.
okay. All
No.
right. I don't want to mess with something you've done beautifully. I really appreciate how solid this is, how clear, it's crystal clear. It's just a point of in-house language, that's all. One
Lovely.
thing. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, objections, clarifications? Sir?
Not an objection at all. I really think the guy has done a great service, a great job with this. I was wondering about two things. Whether, who was the audience that you all had in mind in
Right.
putting this forth as representatives of the group?
Well, I'm speaking off the cuff here.
Yeah.
It was 2017 that I had coffee with Chris O'Rear at the Balmain Starbucks, not knowing whether to pursue a license with the LPC or the LCPT. I didn't know. He said, why don't you come to our annual meeting in a couple of weeks? Then you can meet these folks and decide whether that's your tribe or not. She was president. I made up my mind that this was my tribe. This is my tribe. Not just for her, but for all of you. What we want is for people not to have to go to a meeting and kind of sniff around and talk to people to get a sense of who are you and would this be a good home for me? So what this is designed for is people who are in training, people who are beginning training, people who are asking the question, what license will fit me, as well as potential clients who are going, who are the people that I could go to see for the work that I hope to have done. Does that help?
Yeah.
I could see having this available to distribute when we first meet with folks. Just
Yes.
to have it available
Yeah.
to say, here's further elaboration on how I understand myself and our
Yes.
work together.
And how I want to
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
you.
and yes, our work together, yes.
Chris?
Would it not also give us some internal guidance as we're
Precisely.
planning various events and activities? Does this fit with who we say that we are?
Chris, thank you. That's a beautiful segue for what I'm going to say later in the continuing education committee. We needed to have a statement like this to provide a guiding light for us to invite people to speak, to decide on what themes we're going to pursue in our trainings. Exactly that. Mariana.
Yes, thank you, David. And also, with being able to disseminate this information, this would be fitting for us to be able to place on our own website, so that it gives our potential patients.
Yeah, you can either do a link to the TNAPT.com website or copy paste TNAPT.com statement who we are. Yes. Yeah, I think this is, I like this statement very much.
It's
Very
very
simple.
cool.
Jim, did you have a question? Jim Kaufman? Did you have a question?
In organizing the licensure itself many years ago, there was one feature of identity that was extraordinarily important, and I don't think is quite addressed right now, and that has to do with who we are in training-wise as a national entity. In those days, the American Association of Psychologists, Psychiatrists for the AMA, at that point, we were identified with the American Association of Pastoral Counselors. And where licensure licensure was concerned, that was really a very important identity. In fact, after the licensure passed, I was called several times, two or three times, by Arkansas folk and either Alabama or Georgia folk about their licensures and the development of pastoral therapists in those states. So where public image, where licensure is concerned, I would encourage us to attend to who we are in the broader scheme of therapists in the country. And right now, I guess that is ACPE psychotherapists. And if that is the case, we may want to claim ownership within that broader field of service, scope of practice, as an entity ourselves to both assure trainees and the public of who we are among the broader fields of practice in the country.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea. You are possibly more aware than I am at all of how fraught that is, because AAPC no longer exists and exists now within ACPE, and ACPE's robust relationship with psychotherapy is kind of electric, just like that. So this is very much in process. There's a pastoral psychotherapy roundtable that's now meeting once a month. I'm part of that. Ryan's part of that. A number of you are also part of that. Trying to get some footing nationally, regionally for sure. There's a lot of us kind of on the eastern half of the country, but national standards of testing. I don't want to take too much time. Sorry about this, but great idea. Yes, you're right. That would be a good thing to include. Our intention tonight is to assess whether you are, as a group, fairly comfortable with approving the statement as is, knowing that it can and will be revised. Thank you. Or do I take a vote?
Oh, either of us can.
I would like to take a vote. I've never taken a vote before.
Can I ask for a motion for approval of this document?
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. And she can ask the yea or nay. I don't want to step on her toes.
We're voting as amended, with the suggested amendments.
Well, because the suggested amendment is not clearly articulated yet, we're voting as is.
We're voting on this, okay.
It's a revisable document.
Full.
Okay.
Yes, I think that is an excellent point that you made, Jim, just because things are still in process with that. I think we need to work a little more before we add that language. But let's go ahead. We've had the motion and the second. Let's do a vote by raising hands. All in favor of approving this identity statement in this form to be posted, but then continuing in amendment through further conversation. Please raise your hands. Thank you. And any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much to everyone who has worked hard on raising this. The next item is to vote on our slate of new officers. And this is perhaps one of the most significant changes over the past several years, is that we've really created a culture where instead of just maybe appreciate him being here tonight and Tyler's willingness to go ahead and begin, but this would make it official. And Sharita Forrest is to be our next CPT licensure liaison. She's been preparing under David. Carolyn Smith-Goings would like to shift from being secretary to being our chaplain and outreach officer. And Keller Hawkins, we are so thrilled, has come forward as being willing to take on membership and promotions. So any questions?
Does that include salary increases?
Yes, I suppose a 200% increase even of 0 would be accurate. Excellent question. We all get raises. Okay, may I have a motion that these, thank you. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Welcome, new leaders to the team. And now I'll pass the baton back to David briefly to report on the Continuing Education Committee.
Great. This will be short.
So good evening. I'd like to thank Chrissy Rear, Jennifer Crane Crenshaw, Ryan Fraser, Bruce Rogers Swan, Carol Smith. Carol, are you here? I haven't seen you yet.
Carol messaged me that she would not be here tonight.
Bless her. All right. Dick Brule, Tom Bagwell, and Jim Kaufman. The idea, as Chris raised earlier, the idea of the Continuing Education Committee is to help guide our selection process for themes and presenters, and we depend on the completion of the Identity Task Force work to guide us. We had 2 meetings online and a lot of conversation by email in the process. And there were fine suggestions from Ryan, Jennifer, Tom, and Chris, which led to our being able to invite Dr. Dwayne Bidwell to present to us at our New Witter conference in January, and the intention to have Dr. Terry Casey present here at our annual meeting next year on Friday night on rules and regulations, which will satisfy the ethical portion of our requirement. Other people who've been considered are Dr. Keith Menner and Dr. Frank Warren. So I want to thank the committee very much for their work, and that's where we stand. Thank you.
And if you all have ideas for future programming or speakers, those are the folks to contact about that. And I'll briefly step into my role as chair of the CPT Rules Committee, only to tell you that, unfortunately, nothing has really happened this year because we're waiting on the government. The board did their part, the attorney pushed the rules through for all 3 licenses, and we are told that the wheels are turning very slowly. What this probably means is that the changes will not be able to be implemented as early as they thought, January 1st, 2025. So I would say don't worry about it. At some point, we'll increase our CE requirements from 20 to 40 hours a year. That'll be the main change, but they can't just do that without notice. So unless it gets done tomorrow, which I seriously doubt, I don't think that will be the case starting in January. And just as soon as we know more, we will communicate that. Yes.
This means that the rules about supervisors does not change either.
So because nobody could have gotten licensed these past years since 2016 without an ad hoc new version, they have been acting as if the new rules are happening. And so there's technically a board policy, if you search the website that spells out some of that, but if you need a copy of the specific verbiage, I can send that to you.
I was thinking more about the other side, where our supervisors are eligible to supervise LPCs up to 50% of their hours, and that will change when the rules change.
Unfortunately, yes.
And for now, the old rules remain in effect for supervision, is that correct?
I can't speak to what LPCs are doing. I think that's correct, but I would check with that board person just to make sure.
Okay.
That's a great question. Ryan, did you have a quick report? Yes.
group supervisors. Is that right? That hasn't changed at all.
That is correct.
It's a crazy mixed up thing, I can tell you that. And I'm crazy mixed up, it's gonna help me.
I went looking for that, Laura, to make sure that it's in there, and I didn't find it. I know you and I wrote that into the new ones.
It's this odd catch-22 because they're not allowed to publicize those new rules, even though that's what they're using. So I wish I had something better to offer, but that's kind of the boat that we're in. But people can get licensed. In fact, we've had several these past few years that I will announce in a moment. Good questions.
My experience is that that the state doesn't really tell people what they need to present. And so they're kind of left hanging and guessing what is necessary. That kind of thing is very disruptive.
I agree. I can't tell you how many hours David and I'm sure Chris and Tom and others have spent on the phone with the board, sending emails, reminding them of things over and over again. So we'll all be very relieved when it finally gets publicized. Okay. So we are still in limbo, but if you need anything, continue to reach out to us, and perhaps we can all take an anonymous member's suggestion of taking the board by storm and all going down, introducing all the diplomats and fellows, everyone. Okay. So I will shift gears and give the president's report. It has been a great joy and honor to serve as your president these past 4 years. Back in 2020, anybody remember our jurisprudence Jeopardy game on Zoom that we played? We were in a global pandemic and had no idea how long it would last. Not only did we use the constraints of that experience to add a second annual CE event, the Midwinter Virtual Gathering, but 4 years later, TNAPT is now thriving when less than a decade ago, we didn't even know if we would be surviving. I want to share 16 other things we've accomplished together these past 4 years to remind us of how far we've come and how much we have to celebrate. These could not have happened without the efforts, hours, dedication, and labor of love of our many faithful leadership team officers, and especially the world's most spectacular partner, Dr. David Fulton.
Applause.
We're jumping on that.
So here are the things we have done together. We now have regular bi-monthly-ish those wheels to turn. To the best of my knowledge, we had the first ever leadership team retreat this past spring. We're now having our first ever Interfaith conference. And we have 5 new CPT licensees that I'm aware of over the past 4 years. David Thornton, John McKinnon, Linda Storms, Jason Brazier, and Mason Hale, which increases our numbers by approximately 25%. Up to 20 more in the pipeline, and 64 members of our association at last count. While any transition in leadership can bring feelings of anxiety, I want to say how grateful and proud I am to be handing over the reins to a wonderful team. Ryan Fraser has a servant's heart and is ready to step forward as your next president, and we've all been working hard to build continuity for the days and years ahead. Thank you for all of your trust, support, and collegiality over these past 4 years. Thank you for being a safe and loving community and giving me the opportunity to grow in leadership. I look forward to continuing and deepening in relationship with you all for many more years and God willing decades to come. Do we have any other business that we need to have as part of our meeting before we conclude the report? Yes, Chris.
I just want to formally thank you for your service, for the organization that you have brought, for all of those things that you just listed that were not part of who we are and what we did before, for bringing some structure, some identity, all of those things to this organization that happened because of your efforts, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Since Chris just gave a great speech, we gotta give her just a little token of our appreciation. I can get it out. And they both got some musical things inside there and a card. We just appreciate you so much.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Try not to tear up here. We have another wonderfully joyful time together. It is time to present. Time to present the 2024 Tom Knowles Bagwell Generativity Award. And we do have a few honorable mentions who were also nominated that I want to acknowledge, and I've been asked to use titles, so I will honor that request. Dr. James Kaufman, the Reverend Dr. Donna Scott, Dr. Jennifer Crane Crenshaw, and Dr. Laura Kreiselmeyer, also nominated. And yet, one name really rose to the top and kept appearing over and over again. And we are thrilled to announce that the winner of the 2024 Tom Knowles Bagwell Generativity Award is Dr. Ron McDonald. So many of us have been influenced, inspired, helped, and encouraged by Ron in some way. I can say with confidence that we would not have had a Tennessee clinical pastoral therapy license after 2015 if it weren't for Ron McDonald, who gathered a licensure revisioning task force at his home in Memphis and led us in thoughtful Quaker-style sharing from our hearts and minds about our vision for moving forward. He then chaired the TNAPT Legislative Committee, making frequent trips to Nashville to lobby our legislators to change the law for our license to continue, always with kindness and calm. Ron's equanimity was especially admirable because he had just gotten his own training program accredited when the AAPC announced they would be discontinuing services. Faced with the need to rebuild, he redesigned it as a full Doctor of Ministry program in pastoral therapy at the Memphis Theological Seminary. Before my time, Dr. Ron McDonald served as president of TNAPT, then called TAPT, without the N, as well as being a regular presence at AAPC Southeast Regional meetings at Canoga, both in his professional capacity and with soulful musical contributions on the guitar and tenor dulcimer. Ron is known for finding quiet ways to welcome and include newcomers, such as myself in 2015, into our vocational fold. In the words of David Thornton, his contributions to the field and its future are inestimable. As the kindest of teacher, mentor, supervisors, as the clearest-eyed spiritual guide, as a gentle champion for the license of clinical pastoral therapist, Ron is in my and our Hall of Heroes. Absolutely, and this is a gift from us to enjoy the Memphis Ballet.
The reason I'm involved with the Memphis Ballet and want to see about the dance, which I wanted to long before, but a few of you know that I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and it makes me stutter where I didn't stutter before. It makes me dumber where I always was. But I want to share with you a little bit of what I've learned about being pastoral counselor very quickly, though. Pete Seeger used to tell a story of a king who wanted to be the wisest king in the world, and so he sent his pastoral counselors off to come up with a phrase that would capture all of the world's wisdom in that one phrase. And so they went off, and for 15 years they discovered it, and they came back and said, "We've got the phrase." What's the phrase?" said the king. The phrase is, "This too shall pass." "That's not good enough," said the king. "I want one word that captured all of the wisdom in the world. One word." So they went back, and another 15 years, they came out then with staffs, but they didn't take a staff in the same way we do. They came back and they said, we found the word." "What's the word?" said the king. "Maybe." "No,
Let's stand up and pray. Shall we pray? Our loving God, we're so thankful for this occasion that brings us together, be with like-minded friends and colleagues as we celebrate our work. And thank you for your work through us. We're thankful for Ron and the great legacy that he continues to leave with each of us. We're so thankful for Laura and the tireless hours that and energy that she's put in over the last 4 years. And we pray that you be with her in her future endeavors. Thank you for this institution of Belmont, for the generosity this meal has been prepared. We pray that it will bless our bodies and that the conversation around the table will bless our souls. We pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. Do you want to pass through these doors? Right up there.
treat tonight, and I'm looking forward to introducing our speaker in just a moment, but make yourself comfortable. You'll find that our group is pretty laid back where it right, so make yourself comfortable, and look forward to getting to know everybody here. I'm so glad there's a lot of Belmont students here tonight as well. I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Janet Hicks. She's the chair of the School of Clinical Mental Health Counseling. And then it's
Thank you so much. It's always so good to see the pastoral therapy group. We're so excited you're here. And in that light, I would like to introduce our dean. We have moved to a new college. We're in the College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, and we have a brand new dean. So I would like to introduce Dr. Cheryl Pinto, and she's going to bring greetings from Belmont University.
So some of you all can see I'm vertically challenged, but thank you for having me here today. This is such an honor and a privilege. On behalf of the Belmont University College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, it's truly a distinct honor to welcome each and every one of you to our gathering here today. I have some notes just so that I have so many great feelings for this group. The last year or so has been phenomenal, just trying to get to meet everybody in my college. We have 7 different disciplines in our college. And in a second I'm going to name all of them because it's really so powerful and impactful to have this audience in the room. Mental health counseling, or the School of Mental Health Counseling, is one of our disciplines, but we also have social work, we have public health, we have pharmacy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and exercise science. So I usually make the joke that we are the ones that want to keep you healthy and keep you as far away from a doctor as possible, because we are really focused on your health and well-being. But if you get sick, we'll take care of you as well, right? And so we just have had a tremendous opportunity to get to know a lot of our faculty and students and just this amazing community that's around us. As I look around this room, I'm really truly inspired by all of y'all. Some of the people that I've met this far, some of the work that you do, and the rest of you, the stories that I've heard about you, and I really look forward to getting to know you all more in the course of my time here. But we have licensed mental health professionals at the forefront of clinical care. We have several esteemed faculty and staff in the room around us here today that are truly changing and shaping the future for the profession and for the field. We have advisory board members, and if you're an advisory board member, really thank you so much. We cannot shape the future next generation of mental health counselors without your presence and your contributions on our advisory. So we are really, really truly grateful because you are really helping us create that strategic vision. And of course, brilliant students who are right around us. And so, speaking of my students, my kids, as I like to call them, they hear me say this all the time, and I have to ask for forgiveness because I know some of them don't like to be called kids, right? The story I tell them is I have always prayed to God to have a really good family. I have one biological daughter who I'm very thankful and grateful to God for giving me Kiara. But in addition to Kiara, I have hundreds and thousands of kids. And all of them, as far as the mental health counseling program is concerned, are amazing. And I have a chance to meet several of them. I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of our students. And if I can ask you, wherever you are, to please stand. And if we can give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for your dedication, for all the things that you have done to advance your own knowledge in the skills in mental health. It's truly commendable. You represent the brightest future of our field and the individuals that will go out and shape and change the community. We are all called to live a blessed life, and it's through the work that you will do as you go out to enable those people to live that full, abundant, blessed life. I specifically want to highlight that we are really, really proud of our doctoral program students. Our PhD program here at Belmont University is really pushing the boundaries of both knowledge and practice in mental health. I can't even stop to think the commitment, the dedication that has gone into creating that program, but more importantly, to design and cultivate the next generation of whether they're leaders, innovators, clinicians, various groups that will be impacted and touched because of our students and the lessons they will learn. As the field of mental health continues to evolve and grow, it is our hope that our program continues to be shaped in a number of different ways. We know today that the nation and the world is facing a number of mental health crises or challenges, and in that situation that we find ourselves in, this conference is truly an opportunity to meet with, talk to, learn from, hear from individuals that are in the field that are continuing to shape and mold the future. And so for those of you that are present here today, thank you so much for taking the time, making the effort to prioritize your learning and learning of others. For those of you that might be intrigued of the prospect of becoming a doctoral student, Janet is in the room. We have other faculty that are in the room. Now, we'll be more than happy to talk with you about what that educational journey for you might look like. We know that there is a shortage of individuals like you, and so we would want to really empower you if this is the right place for you to come talk with us. Thank you for choosing to be part of this really important gathering here today. Your presence underscores the critical nature and the role of mental health in our society and the power of our collective expertise. And so with that, I really want to end by saying, please have a wonderful conference. Thank you for being here. And once again, Belmont welcomes you, my college and my mental health school welcomes you. We are thrilled to have you here for this weekend. Thank you.
We greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Dean, and thank you, Janet, for just working with us and this great hospitality. We don't normally eat that well, and you're kind of spoiling us. So thank you for spoiling us and providing that delicious meal this evening. And again, so glad to have each one here. I don't want to take away any more time from Dr. David Dart this evening. He's going to be speaking to us about Interfaith Soul Care. Several months ago, our committee in TNAPT for continuing ed this meeting and our leadership group was talking about who can we have to come and speak about Interfaith Soul Care. We decided to go to the dark side. And we just heard nothing but such positives about Dr. David Dart. And so he serves as an associate professor of religion and arts at Belmont. His PhD in histories and critical theories of religion is from Vanderbilt University. He's a lifelong Nashvilleian, enjoys walking and reading and relishing art and film with his wife Sarah Dart, a writer, singer, and ceramicist. They have 3 grown children. David's research interests include religion, science fiction, poetry, and the nonviolent movement of America. He's written many books. His most well-known is We Become What We Normalize, the sacredness of questioning everything. I asked David a moment ago, I said, what do you do for fun? He said, I'm into comics. And I said, what comics? He said, Doctor Who. And so, so this is going to be great. Come on up. Thank you.
Awfully grateful to be here. I will note that this, I'm going to break it up a little bit, as in I'll talk for quite a while, and then there will be 2 questions that I will have y'all talk to each other about. make sense to everyone? Also, the clock there is a false covenant. That's not true. But I'm gonna do the 2 hours. I mean, if someone says, "Come on, let's leave it alone," I'll accept that. But I will try to keep it lively and interesting for 2 hours. I also want to say, I was looking at the thing that's getting passed out, and the 4th question is, what is earthseed? Or explain earthseed? I'm really interested. Yeah.
Describe earthseed.
Yeah, describe earthseed, but there's a question mark, and that was a complete accident on my part. I did not mean to say, describe earthseed. Like, would you be willing to do that? Should be a period there. Feel free to fix that. I'll say too, here's the book, We Become What We Normalize. There was a sound that came from people when we become what we normalize was voiced aloud, and I'm excited about that. It is intended to be a challenging, something of a provocation, kind of dooming, but also really positive. You know, we can become what we normalize in the best sense, as well as succumbing to all manner of dysfunction if we normalize it. And I'll mention too that the other one that is kind of well known is Life's Too Short to Pretend You're Not Religious. It is not, this too is a provocation. I'm not trying to insist that everyone's religious whether they like it or not, but I want to do some interesting things with the concept of religion. That which we name religion or don't name religion. And this is all going to show up in the talk. So I will read a lot of what I have, but there will come a time when I'll break it up and we'll do some back and forth. Is this working for everybody? Okay. I guess I'll say too. I'm going to say a little bit more. I'm a Nashville lifer. Grew up in Creek Hall. I went to Franklin Road Academy. Went to MTSU. I was baptized at Central Church of Christ, up from the Rhine. So I have some of that going on in my life. Taught at Christ Pres Academy for 10 years. That's the school part of Christ Presbyterian Church, which you might know about. But Downtown Presbyterian Church is where I've been a member. Would it be for most of my life? Not quite for most of my life, but for a really long time. I've been an elder there at Downtown Pres, ECUSA. So there's a little bit of data on me. I guess I'm going to say this too. Nashville is really, it's interesting, as is Tennessee. I would say that Belmont, by virtue of being a Christ-centered learning community, I would say that's part of the prayer trade. And by prayer trade, I'm referring to the monetizing of belief, confession, theology. So I'm part of the prayer trade. I'm here at Belmont. Within the prayer trade, this is a circle, there's a thing that I call the God grift. And the God grift is a little less respectable than the prayer trade. But it's real. It can be something of a confidence game that exists between people. I hope that I'm not part of the God grift. But I've got to acknowledge I kind of have been at various parts of my life. Prayer trade, God grift, and then faith cartel would be the smaller circle. And within the faith, and this is me a lot of the time, and I'm serious, but I'm also trying to be funny simultaneously. I know it's funny to speak this way, but I mean it. Faith cartel gets vindictive. People retaliate against each other, and people come at each other for failing to believe or pretend to believe the right things in particular contexts. So, faith cartel, God grift, prayer trade. Just in case some of that becomes part of what we're talking about. And with that, interfaith soul care. I'm going to place some terms in front of you. I have possible definitions. They're mine, but I don't wish to insist they need to be someone else's as well. So these are possible definitions. I imagine my definitions for these words will differ with yours, and that's exciting to me if we want to talk about that. Couple terms right off the bat. Spiritual abuse. Spiritual abuse is a form of violence, whether in speech or behavior, in which I try to deny someone the right to assess their own thoughts, feelings, or experiences without me. Or, more broadly, apart from the community or tradition I imagine I'm adhering or being true to. I don't have to be conscious of it to be guilty of it. It's subtly undertaken and subtly detected. To see it requires slowing the tape and discerning what I'm too prone to speed or rush past in my own words, attitudes, and actions. I can't see myself as a spiritually abusive person until I begin to detect my own quickening pulse, my own sense of hurry, haste, and defensiveness when confronted with incoming data that doesn't flatter me or favor the optics of the position I've staked out. Perhaps under duress, perhaps not entirely freely. In spiritually abusive mode, I seek to control the conversation. Spiritual abuse is, of course, grounded in a kind of fear. I can begin to avoid the moods and language of spiritual abuse by fessing up to my own finiteness, my own situatedness at every turn, over and over again, every day. I can speak in terms of my own experience, admitting its limits, and declining to try to rhetorically universalize my feelings, my thoughts, my confession, and my position. I succumb to spiritual abuse when I center my own take, double down, and essentially should on someone else. Shaming or trying to shame them for not believing as I believe, for not believing what I believe, or what I think I believe. Christian supremacy is spiritual abuse with funding. Spiritual abuse with funding. Thank you for the laugh. It doesn't play well with others because at bottom it won't or can't quite let them be. Were we to name it as a posture and a position and an awkward feeling, we might say that Christian supremacy can abide strategically people who aren't Christian and won't become Christian. But Christian supremacy has an awfully hard time accepting that there are those among us who must not become Christian. That's the can't quite let them be part. There's too much at stake. Again, funding. I don't want to make light of funding. Funding isn't everything, but it's a lot of things. I've called, in the description, I call Christian supremacy an ideology. So I'm going to attempt a definition of ideology as well. Ideology is what you have to believe in order to not hate yourself completely for what you've already decided or committed to say and do. I'll say it again. Ideology is what you have to believe in order to not hate yourself completely for what you've already decided or committed to say and do. And we'll talk about it quite a bit, hopefully. Ideology is the supreme note, the hardness of head and heart, the thickness of falsehood, false consciousness, if you like, that generations of prophets have sought to crack within and without. The self-legitimating mindset that can't afford and won't be made to think twice or look again, or, I want to say feel, before thinking. Because a big one for me, and it's taken me a while, but it's only recently that I've let myself believe that I feel before I think. That thinking comes later. So I want to say ideology is often militantly denying feelings, maybe starting with myself, when feelings don't fit the ideology the question that we get to put to ideology. What do we find ourselves believing we have to believe, thinking we have to think, or pretend to think to get by? Kurt Vonnegut says we are what we pretend to be, so we must be very careful about what we pretend to be. And that's an interesting one, because it kind of transactionalism, performative behavior. I mean, that word from Vonnegut suggests that you're going to kind of become that. You're going to forget that you're pretending. And I'll throw in too that Vonnegut, beautifully, and as a real gift to the species, it seems to me, when he contemplated his own military service in World War II, he always insisted that if he had been born in Germany, he would have been a good Nazi. So he would not credit himself with having been a hero. He said, I would have been a great Nazi. And I would have sometimes warmed myself with my secretly virtuous insides. And that's just a crazy, disturbing phrase. Because I would sometimes hold my head up a little higher because of my secretly virtuous insides. I add to the Vonnegut line, we are what we pretend to be, so we must be very careful about what we pretend to be. A question that the novelist Tony K. McGraw voiced, which is this, and it's a good question for overcoming ideology, which I think is kind of a life's work in some sense. But her question was this: what are you pretending not to know today? As a kind of a way of reviewing, taking an inventory on one's positions, and what positions come from genuine feeling, and what positions are born of fear. I think that's a beloved community kind of question. What are you pretending not to know today? When I say beloved community, I don't think I'm sidestepping the particularities of any sacred tradition. I think I'm holding a door open for transformation, for being transformed by the renewing of my mind together with others. You maybe know the Bible well enough to know that's Romans 12:2, but I'm trying to, and the rest of the Bible, believe me, but I'm wanting that posture to be a kind of, I want it to be the witness of beloved community, rather than what we perhaps think of as the body of Christ, or wherever we land on these things. Holding the door open for transformation. When I note the way my pretending to not know, to hide things from myself, is born of fear, I can see that the question, what are you pretending not to know today, can help me overcome that fear with what I'm safe to, with love, self-respect. I'll say this, I do believe. I'm going to say it. I believe in God, and I don't believe God gives anyone a spirit of fear. And I try to carry that with me through my day. Like, is this fear? Because if it is not of God. And I think that work of overcoming deferential fear is kind of the work of education and liberation, certainly. Here too, I think of Dorothy Soule and the distinction she made as we think about Christian supremacy, the traditions to which we mean to adhere. She made a distinction between obedience and fulfillment. Dorothy Soule, who, I don't know when she passed. I don't know the name Dorothy Soule by any chance? Union Theological Seminary. She was, I believe she was Hitler Youth in her context. But she got out. She ended up at Union. And she wrote very movingly of her transformation and her life seeking first God's kingdom and righteousness in various contexts. But Dorothy Soule sees obedience as conformity and deference rooted in fear. Fear of not being in compliance with someone else's standards, submission, subordination, following orders, playing along to get along, closed fist, supremacy. That's obedience. Closed fist obedience. Fulfillment is the open hand. Fulfillment is a different play entirely from obedience. If the beginning and end of the loved community is love, sweet love. Beloved community expands the space of the talk-aboutable by listening to others, receiving and learning from the witness of those who differ from me. If Christianity's your jam, there's a place for Christianity in this if you believe that Christ plays in 8 billion places. 8 billion is the number of us in our one human barnyard. A strong center in Christ or candor or conscience or creativity leaves room for love overcoming fear. When my center is strong, I'm less nervy and afraid, less likely to police my edges, less prone to want to try to control people, less anxious about what other people believe, and more curious about what's going on with others, more alert to power differentials, more open to possibly unflattering feedback concerning the position that I've staked out, and more open to unflattering feedback, not just the position, but the tradition that I believe that I'm representing. The open hand, beloved community. Beloved community runs on openness to that which is or seems other. For beloved community, difference isn't a problem, it's an opportunity for transformation. Difference is the sunshine for beloved community. Beloved community, I want to note as well, is knowingly hybrid, knowingly interfaith. I've come to prefer saying beloved, I do pray the Lord's Prayer, but lately where I used to say Kingdom of God, I now say beloved community, because everyone is in beloved community, or is a part of beloved community, but not everybody acts like it. It's a little like the children of God thing. I believe everyone's a child of God, but I don't think everyone is acting like a child of God. Some of us are estranged from our center. I'll note this hybrid quality of not just traditions, but my tradition, which is Christianity. And yet, I will note there came a time in my life with my Buddhist and Jewish and Muslim friends that I stopped secretly hoping that they would convert to Christianity. There came a time, and I've been at it for probably more than 20 years now, where I would actually be sad if I found out that they did, because I know that my own path is enriched by their distinctive pursuit of righteousness in their context. I think of people that I really need to keep being Buddhist, because they're part of my mental furniture in so many ways. Beloved community, knowingly hybrid. At 54, I've been a little late to the realization concerning the hybridity, if you will, of my own traditions. Somewhere back there I was shown that the Bible, as a collection of very different texts canonized as scripture over time, should never be read flatly. That you don't want a verse in 2 Chronicles to cancel out the Sermon on the Mount, for instance. You want to let transformation all the way through. You don't want to read it flatly as if there is no movement, development, or ethical evolution within the collection itself. The biblical tradition contains traditions within itself that appeal to one another, counter one another, and sometimes leave one another behind. You have heard that it was said, but I say unto you, do not remember the things of old. And I'll throw in, it was really recently that I was reading, I teach Bible here at Belmont, and I was reading aloud some of the Sermon on the Mount. It was the eye for eye, tooth for tooth bit. And in the translation we were looking at, Jesus said, you have heard that it was said. And I just thought that was so funny. You have heard that it was said. It was as if Jesus was leaving room for nobody ever actually said it. Somebody just said that it was said. So that's thrilling to me. You have heard that it was said. To make the most of it, the biblical witness, or whatever sacred text we're looking at, means to hold fast to movement, to receptivity, to new and unforeseen disclosures, to whatever wisdom might yet arise among us in our contemporary context as we consider the content of the collection as somehow contemporary to us. Of the Bible, more than one thing is true. The Bible is a bag of horrors here and there. Even as it functions here and there as a gift to the species. It's also, and I look forward to feedback on this, but this is kind of my latest, I don't mean to sum it up, but it's kind of a provocation. The Bible is the composition notebook of a centuries-long caravan of asylum seekers. Bible is a composition notebook of a centuries-long caravan of asylum seekers. It's a popularly cultivated collection of texts reaching to us in the here and now, in the this of which sweet dreams are made. When I say that, does anybody catch that? Okay. I'm glad. Okay. The this of which sweet dreams are made. With that, I think we'll have a few moments for y'all to talk to each other. Does that make sense? So you got two of them there. And you can do one or both. Look at those two questions. We won't take more than 5 or 10 minutes, but talk to each other for a moment about those first two. Those first two.
Take whatever you were just about to say, and when we have the break again, you can go right back to it. I will see, well, I just asked, with any of those questions, is there an insight that arose at the table, or a response to either question that anyone would be interested in sharing? Just hear from maybe 2 or 3 people. And you could, of course, say, so-and-so said. That might be one way to go.
About the question, can you step in the same religion twice? I have heard that it was said that that can happen. It depends on how deep the manure is.
Ooh. Nice.
Way to go.
That's good. That's great. Thank you. I would have thought no, but you just described the situation. The shoe might fit in the manure. I will repeat what was said. Can you step in the same religion twice? Yes, maybe, if the manure is deep enough in that religion. Yeah. Yes?
I worked as a CPE educator in a community hospice in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was using the book Spiritual Care in the Age of Post-Colonialism by Emmanuel Arte and Helen Moon. And the CEO found out that I was using that book, and she told us that we shouldn't use the book because in it said that Christianity is one of many religions.
Yeah. And so that was the end of that.
Yeah, my position ended about 6 months ago.
Okay.
Due to
Yeah.
budgetary concerns.
Budgetary concerns, yeah. That would be an instance of Christian supremacy in the wild. Yeah, I would say so. Yes? Yes.
Isn't it, as you know, being a Nashvilleian and Tennessean in the state of Tennessee, you are identified if you put in God we trust on your license plate. It will start with numbers. If you don't have in God we trust, your license plate starts with letters. So you can drive down the road and be identified by your license plate. Now the state of Tennessee has said everybody will have in God we trust. My license plate has a hummingbird.
Okay. Yeah, so I didn't want to go too hard with it, and I want to kind of shift into other things, but Christian supremacy, as a taxpayer-funded ideology, in something to think about there. We're not talking Christian nationalism exactly, but it's related. The two are perhaps conjoined. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how are they not related?
Ooh.
Yes, good question. Good question.
Because I see them both one and the same.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to have to think about it. I spoke in an unexamined way. To perhaps posit a bit of a division. I guess I would say with Christian nationalism, it is often tied to a particular understanding of the meaning of the United States of America. Whereas with Christian supremacy, that seems to be happening in other countries as well, to say the least. But the one feeds the other, undoubtedly. Yeah, I have some material I wasn't sure I was going to get to, but I think, I'm not going to get to it now, but I'm maybe going to tag it on at the end, in terms of ways of defining religion, which seem rhetorically calibrated to justify Christian supremacy, as in some sense the law of the land. Yes?
So I said that Christian supremacy was the cradle that held and nurtured me as I was being raised.
Okay. Yeah. I was in a similar situation, and yet, I don't want to get into it too much, but I often say of my folks, I'll say they were Jimmy Carter evangelicals, to make a distinction. But yeah, an awful lot of that for sure. Yeah.
maybe that'll mean something to folks. But it was an awful lot like what Christ Press kind of is when I taught there for 10 years. Yes?
In light of Tom's statement, I would also say that the second word, supremacy, is it not something that in the developmental process we all come up against?
Yeah.
And in terms of, from the perspective of differentiation, we are constantly meeting supremacy.
Yes.
Of some sort or another in order to find ourselves, which earlier you alluded to in some of your other remarks, this process of differentiating ourselves toward what is primary, what's important, what really matters.
Yeah. I'm going to get into art in a moment, and I'm going to try to define art. Lately, I've been trying to define art in relation to empire. And by empire, I mean all kinds of things. But one way I try to define empire so that it isn't always something that happens somewhere else. And so it's not always referring to one figure or government or time. I like defining empire as militant denial. Empire is some form of militant denial, which I'm noting with supremacy. If there's this is how it is, getting into the differentiation part, that there is a reactivity that I succumb to when I feel like my identity is under attack. And I don't know who it was, but somebody in the first year seminar reading, Garrett Belmont, said that when I think my identity is under attack, it registers in my mind as physical pain. I'm going to say this in front of y'all as another possible saying, and you can come back with me and say, that's wrong and here's why. But a helpful saying that has arisen to me in recent years is this, and it's not once for all, but it's this saying: toxic personalities are traumatized personalities. That isn't to say that there's inevitable, we go toxic by virtue of being traumatized, but maybe a possibly helpful proverb in trying to not villainize or demonize the person engaged in toxic speech, toxic conception of themselves, that kind of thing. So that's just a thought that's coming to mind on the differentiation, supremacy.
Well, there's certainly a broad movement in the psychotherapy world that says exactly that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going a little off script here, but I'm going to do it. Did anyone know Bob Sherman? The name Bob Sherman?
Woodmont Baptist Church?
No. Oh gosh, no. No, not that Bob Sherman. I know that Bob Sherman. I did not realize until just now that it was the same name.
No, it's Bill Sherman. That's Bill Sherman.
Yeah, that's Bill Sherman. Thank you. I know Bill Sherman. I knew Bob Sherman. Bob Sherman, the musician Beth Nielsen Chapman, possibly. She lost her husband and wrote a song about it. She then years later, she married Bob. And through some people that I think I have in common with a lot of you, I came to know Bob. Bob was a therapist. Bob identified as a Hindu. Jewish, also very studied in some Hindu traditions. And he told me, Bob Sherman, that he always imagines with whoever he's talking to or even envisioning on the news that however things have gone badly for them, however abusive they are, however dangerous they are, Bob insisted that he imagines that if he had lived through the exact same circumstances as that person, he would be doing exactly what they're doing. I'm guessing there's a school of thought for that too. And part of my own practices comes down to actually, but doing lately with art and empire. Empire divides. Empire insists that these two events have nothing to do with each other. Art integrates. Art says everything is everything. Art gives us symbols with which to realize possible integration that has yet to appear in front of us. Now, I need to go back to this because I say this eventually. Art and empire. Maybe that'll arise as a couple concepts as we're talking. So I'm gonna, yes?
Does the art help to clean up the work of the empire?
I think that art bears witness against. I can't recall if I say it here, but I believe that spirit overcomes division. Spirit knows no division. And I use the word witness to describe the whole person. If I speak of the witness of Doctor Who, or the witness of Radiohead, or various artisans, I'm referring not just to the product of their work, but how people were paid, how they treated folks, witness. And so I think art insists on mirroring and amplifying the whole when empire denies the damage done. And empire covers things up. Smooths over that which should not be smoothed over. Empire resists the incoming data that is the material of art, in some sense. Does that speak a little to the
It does, and I guess then I still turn back and I say the art gets to be what is placated for the empire's cover up.
Yeah.
So when the empire invades the territory and takes the artifacts and proclaims it as art, and now we forget about the empire's atrocities.
Yeah, I think there's a person who's really important to me named James Carse, who wrote a book called Finite and Infinite Games. And James Carse says that the museum protects people from art. It's not ideally, if it's free, okay. But often, museums protect us from the witness of art, in a way. Okay, I'm going to go back to this, and then we'll open it up again in a moment. The this of which sweet dreams are made. Everybody is looking for something. Some of us want to use you, some of us want to get used by you, some of us want to abuse you. And there are at least a few among us who want to be abused. To sing a song is to assert anew the world that we're in, and to also know it again more feelingly. I'm headed toward Earthseed, which is a way of talking about religion as image, story, song. Story and song being kind of the twin hypnotics of human culture. For better or worse, song. We are storytelling creatures and story-dwelling creatures. And the right story can help us realize that the story our lives are currently telling is not the story, is not what we want our witness to be. I spy in eurythmic sweet dreams, parentheses are made of this, solid counsel. I spy an illuminating theory of culture. They are sound teachers. Their 80s pop hit brings to mind a saying set forth by Ronald Sukanik: if you don't use your own imagination, somebody else is going to use it for you. What I'm up to in my dreaming is what I'm up to in my waking life. Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart and other pop cult artisans keep me grounded and awake to what's possible amid and within and in spite of the sometimes catastrophically uncreative systems in which I try to survive, sustain myself, and remain whole. And yes, pop cult artisans. I say pop cult instead of pop culture on purpose. put the cult back in culture. Because I wish to go granular in my consideration of these matters. It takes a lot of cults to make a culture. And sometimes, if we can let it be a value-neutral thing, it's not, ask not if you're in a cult, ask this, which ones? You can't step in the same pop culture twice. Something new is being popularly cultivated at all times. Even now, within this time and space, as we're talking, it's a different vibe than it was before the break. For me, anyway, I'm way more relaxed because people have been talking. Artfully or inartfully, we are never not cultivated. Culture is not optional. Who am I obeying? Who do I credit and why? Who do I excuse and why? To what and to whom do I wish to be or have been attuned? What do I want to see happen? To put such questions to myself together with others is to think, theorize about culture. We're soaking in it. We kind of sort of are culture. It's awfully hard to draw a line to show where culture stops and our bodies begin. I'm not sure it can be done. I can secure a crime scene, maybe, but it's still all culture. Culture names the games, the fields of play, the whole one human barnyard of what each of us are up to here and now around the world, the whole teeming thing, the whole human being. But let's not generalize. Let's get back to art and artfulness and little old us. I hear Joni Mitchell in my head insisting we've got to get our mind bodies back to our gardens, to embodied particularity, to what we're cultivating in the here and now and then. I hear William Blake laying down a hard metric for, I'm going to talk prophets in a moment, but before prophets, noticer supremes. I'm going to say noticer supreme. That's kind of a funny way of describing the prophetic task. Called to notice, to be noticer supremes. This is Blake. Labor well the minute particulars. The one who would do good to another must do it in minute particulars. General good is the plea of the scoundrel, hypocrite, and flatterer. For art and science cannot exist but in minutely organized particulars. Minutely particularize your loves immediately, is what I'm hearing him tell us. Seeing well and doing well means eschewing generalization and minding the minute particulars. All politics is local. All culture is granular. The little moves add up. Mind gaps, get precise, go granular or go home. This is what art invites us to. Good politics too, I want to say. Good religion too, I want to say. A summons to creative awareness. Seeing and sensing a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, and holding infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in and out. Art, after all, is an act of integration. An act undertaken, it seems to me, many times a day by billions of us. Minutely particular as they are, most of these acts go uncelebrated and perhaps largely unnoticed, but hear this, they add up, they stir up, they overcome division and alienation, they release energy and awareness. Acts of integration restore our senses. Art makes us whole again and again. I'll note within the PCUSA, when we read the Bible out loud, we say, listen to the word of the Lord. Read it, and then thanks be to God. I think of that as an act of integration, and also a lovely way of avoiding the impression that whatever gets said about the Scripture is what it meant. If that makes sense to everybody. You're going to have a go at it, but meaning is a consensual activity. And nobody's interpretation gets to trump everybody else's. Art makes us whole again and again. Every act of integration is a human success. There is, we know, evidence of human unsuccess all around us. But there are also myriad feats of attentiveness, people waking up to their own creative capacity capacities, their own moral power repeatedly, all over again every day. To be human is to be a lot of things at once. To be an artist is to feel and know and act like it. An artist is a child surviving adulthood. Here we go, hang on. I'm trying to decide what I need to skip. And what can feel like a sea of meanness and reactivity, I refer here to my everyday experience. Art accords me a moment's wholeness, and suddenly the script is flipped, and I'm capable of creative responsiveness again, capable of candor and courage and conscience for at least a little while. A moment's wholeness restores perception, and therefore situational awareness, and again, every now and then, human success. It's strange to place the word human in front of success, but I think we have to if we want to see ourselves and others clearly. If we don't, if I don't, I run the risk of getting horribly confused over what success is, and what wholeness is, and what remains possible for me and mine. Art is a sneaky essential ceremony whereby we honor and treasure and share with one another the fragile facts of our own lives. Emily Dickinson says that to fight aloud is very brave. To enter art is to do just that. Art is to know again, as if for the first time, what's going on. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On was and is, and remains, what's going on. Much of this was brought home to me recently at a small dinner party in London, at which I met the artist-producer Brian Eno. David Bowie's heroes, Coldplay, Talking Heads, U2, Devo. It's very excited to meet him. Someone says, and it was interesting too, he said, I said, I'm from Nashville. He said, I've never been there, but I follow a lot of the music that comes from Nashville. And for someone like that to speak of Nashville as this place from which music has arisen, and of course, that's the way. But for him to say it, it was very pleasant. Anyway, I wanted to make an impression. Someone said, what do you teach? I said, religion and science fiction. I often say that, it's true. And I knew it would get him going. I was trying to draw attention to myself. I often am. Eno then said, I have a question for you, and it is a question I've had for a very long time, and I believe that you are someone who can answer it. And I thought, here we go. And he said, is religion just art? Gift of a question. I attempted an answer which I'll share, but I'm going to live with that question. I want you to live with the question. That's the fill in the blank part. I want y'all to talk about it. Not quite yet. Is religion just art? I define religion as perceived necessity. Value neutral term. I really wanted to make him happy, but I had to be honest. And I said, okay, it's very important for me that with religion that my definition include bad religion. And I said, for instance, it seems to me that unregulated capitalism is the most well-funded, well-armed world religion in human history. And it demands sacrifice. And it demands, arguably, the destruction of the humanly inhabitable world in the name of shareholder profits or something like that. And I said, but that's why I want to say religion is perceived necessity. But absolutely, true religion, good religion, remembers where bad religion dismembers. True religion serves that which coheres and connects or acknowledges connection, whereas bad religion dissolves, destroys, humiliates, debases, crushes spirits, whereas good religion serves, sustains, restores spirits. And he seemed okay with that, and I was really, really pleased. And maybe, hold up. I think maybe, Did I say maybe we're going to do a break again?
It's a joke from earlier.
Okay. Did I say maybe on his religion just started?
We joked before you got here, I think, that the one word that captured all of the wisdom of the earth.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of the William Stafford ritual to read to each other. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. Maybe is a nice one. I think so, maybe. Who's to say? Okay, just a little bit more before the break. There's remembering the act of integration which remains within reach, here and there, amid the disintegrating choices we see, and of which we hear tell of. There is, after all, art. The synchronizing, as opposed to the suppressing, of feeling. Art addresses our complexities with curiosity and care and sometimes even courage. In art, we can each shine like we're supposed to. We can get in sync with each other. Art can overcome the impulse to divide one thing from another and access instead the underlying unity, the creative interiorities we have in common, the energy we each have inside of us. Art, I wish to insist, is unarmed religion. Good religion, true religion, if it can be said to exist, has to at least be artful. It has to be an integrating activity. Art can't be compelled. It just survives in the valley of its sang. One can't, after all, force-feed a realization, but one can proffer and cobble together and share, as the gift that it is, art. Jasper John says, art is taking a thing and doing something to it, and then doing another thing to it. I don't know if that's all that useful, but I can imagine doing that, which has me excited about maybe being an artist in some sense. Art is true vision, a gift of spirit. Everyone's invited to it. We know it when we see and feel and hear it. Spirit will not be denied. I'm going to read aloud of Grace Lee Bob's quote, which is on the back of your piece of paper. You don't have to turn to it, I just wanted you to have it. When people come together voluntarily to create their own vision, they begin wishing it to come into being with such passion that they can begin creating an active path leading to it from the present. The Spirit and the way to make the Spirit live coalesce. Instead of seeing ourselves only as victims, we begin to see ourselves as part of the continuing struggle of human beings. Not only to survive, but to evolve into more human beings. And when I hear that, I think of Daniel Berrigan saying, stand where you must stand, be human there. Art is the active path in the human fight. It is both means and end in the work of feeling more, and therefore loving self and others more, and our sweet old world more minutely, and specifically, and humanly. To fight aloud is very brave, and bravery is contagious. It takes nerve to get free. It takes nerve to create. It takes strength to try hard to see what you'd rather not know about yourself and others. It takes art. Okay, so we're going to do a quick break, and then we'll come back with some mercy and stuff. Please talk to each other about that. Is religion just? And put that word art in there if you want to.
same with religion.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on how you define it, and is it, art can serve to subjugate too.
Yes.
It's just like religion can subjugate.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think that the way we define things is important.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, art's tricky. I think art, by virtue of being art, I can recall a student when I taught high school, a teacher said, "When is art dangerous?" And the student got really angry with the teacher for suggesting that art is dangerous. And kind of trying to hold a space for cartoon, drawing, whatever one does, short of taking a wooden frame with a painting in it and hitting someone with it. I think art is a space in which anything can be attempted and can be said, kind of a sacred space in that sense. That there's things that I could say that could get me fired, but hopefully in art, I could tell a story about somebody saying something, and it just is what it is because it's art. Like it's kind of a space in which all manner of witness can occur. And I don't want to judge it too much, because there's art that scratches an itch for somebody that doesn't for me. But yeah, it does come down to how we define it. I'm prone to never want to say, to me, if it's art, it's good for somebody. Yeah, that's maybe a different thing. The possibility of bad art, good art, all that kind of thing. Yes?
We discussed about how you mentioned the quote about it's not a question of if you're in a cult, but which one you're in.
Yes.
And talking about how art and religion in the pop culture sense, kind of, you touched on it just like that. And just how in more contemporary forms, and especially with like younger generations, how a lot of pop culture icons are starting to become more religious, and like without anyone really touching on it, the almost hero worshipping of certain musicians or celebrities or certain things are becoming essentially just a contemporary form of worship and practice of that religion.
Yes.
Even with some having like names,
Yes.
like fan bases and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm really interested in fan bases because I think they are a form of witness in their way. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I believe that Taylor Swift is I don't know if I'm going to say righteous. I'm going to say the Taylor Swift situation, it seems to me, is a kind of a form of righteousness in the world. I can't name 3 Taylor Swift songs to my shame. But when I say Taylor Swift in a classroom, there are people who are holding their heads up a little higher when I say the name Taylor Swift, as people have done with Johnny Cash for some time. Paramore. Just these acts. I'm going to say witness, because witness names the whole thing. And there's a Taylor Swift Education Center down there. Y'all notice that? Over by the Country Music Hall of Fame. So with witness, it's just always, what is the witness doing? You'll know it by its fruit. And the fruit, very often, of some of these artists and the fan base, kind of great sometimes. I don't quite want to call it a religion, but one can, if that's helpful. Definitely a witness. Radiohead is a big one for me. And I say, the band Radiohead, I sometimes say I believe Radiohead. To note, it's not just a distraction. Doctor Who as well. I can't explain myself to myself apart from the living tradition that is Doctor Who. Maybe that's a hard sell for some. But we have these things. James Joyce, Toni Morrison, witnesses that expand the space of the talk about it before us. There was a hand back there.
So I think what we got hung up on was just.
Yes.
But I was thinking that there are definitely
Yes, this did not make it into the final draft, but the artist Kendrick Lamar has a song called, I can't recall if it's DNA. I think it is DNA. And in the middle of it, there's talk of Barack Obama and all kinds of stuff. But in the middle of it, Kendrick Lamar says, watch my soul speak. And then he keeps going. And something about that watch my soul speak, amid this torrent of words and sounds, it's almost like I am giving witness. Watch me make my witness. And my soul speak too is great. Watch my soul speak. An awful lot like the book of Revelation, where you have seeing the sound rather than hearing the sound. So real profound, to me, prophetic work. And before we're done, I'm gonna define the prophetic task. But I think that art, is a conduit of a way of carrying soul forward. In a lot of ways, soul being animal movement, as I understand it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Art is a way of being awake, alive and responsive, not reactive to the incoming data of our everyday lives. Art calls out to art. It is across the centuries a group activity. Art beckons us to say and share and sing what we see. To study the ever-loving fact of art is to step into a realization, to see and know and feel that others have undertaken the witness of art already. Ancient precedents are intermingled with current practices, same as it ever was. There have been people of understanding, possessed of poetic and prophetic authority throughout history. They are among us even now. Maybe that's most people. We can be like them. We can imitate their beautiful choices. Because there's art, there are avenues to empathy and ingenuity here and there, and maybe everywhere. It is also the case that we are each born into infrastructures of inartfulness, human unsuccess, catastrophically bad ideas about ourselves, others, and the natural world. The systems I refer to, following the Reverend James Lawson, as plantation capitalism, are interlocking and appear indomitable, but they are only systems. They can be challenged and changed. One perceived necessity can overcome another. Patti Smith is correct. We, the people, have the power to wrestle the earth from fools. Revolution begins with a feeling, a reconsideration of the minute particulars of today and tomorrow and the day before, a taking stock, a thinking mind, and an open heart, a spark of surprise and self-awareness. This is the not televised part Gil Scott-Heron describes. It's an inward realization within an individual, the refusing to be diminished person before it manifests as art and collective action. From there, Eno actually has words for how moral movements gain ground. This isn't known. Eno doesn't fly anymore. And Eno is a climate activist in recent years. Eno says, social revolutions happen in two phases. The first is when everybody realizes the current system isn't working any longer. The second is when everybody realizes that everybody else has realized it too. Then the coalescence begins. The movement gels. The vast majority of people realize they're on the same side. The people come together, and there's no stopping them. But for individuals, there is much to be overcome in advance of the coalescence. So much that diminishes people, so much fear. Nevertheless, art calls out. The creative task, as Bambara tells us, is to make revolution irresistible. In art, we can try on new and freer selves. We can tease out our interiority with curiosity, concentrate on what's available in our context, and since we're bound to obsess in one way or another, we can obsess positively. I draw here on Octavia Butler, who taught positive obsession, true devotion to your own creative intuition. Observe. This is Bambara. Obsession can be a useful tool if it's positive obsession. Using it is like aiming carefully Decide what you want, aim high, go for it. Positive obsession is about not being able to stop just because you're afraid and full of doubts. Positive obsession is dangerous. It's about not being able to stop at all. What I see in Butler's counsel is a clarion call to industrial strength self-respect, a determination to get real and go deep with oneself and others with available materials, to truly figure out what irks you and nobody else the way it irks you, and why that is, to dig into the data of what you like and love and act on it, requires will and energy. Butler commends, and it's a self-administered word, the beautiful and breathtaking work of being one single, original, ineluctable self. We're going to obsess. Nervous system's going to nervous system. How we obsess is on us. Obstacles to integration and transformation remain: anxiety and stress and shyness, for instance. Butler will have none of it. Okay, so I'm not using this word. This is Butler using this word that's coming out. Shyness is shit. It isn't cute or feminine or appealing. It's torment and it's shit. Self-advocacy, this is me speaking, is tough work. Integration is hard. Hard is hard, but we are not without resources. Others, resourceful people just like ourselves, have been here before, and they've left signs and artifacts and holy items behind. Songs, stories, images, rituals, lyrics, art, religion, dream work. Butler addresses our situation with fiction. Anybody read Parable of the Sower by any chance? Okay. I'm going to draw on this a bit. It begins as a journal entry, Parable of the Sower, written in 1993. The journal entry begins on July 20th, 2024. So Earthseed Day was a couple months ago. No, not even a couple. Yeah, but we're in September. It was a ways back. It's a dystopian world that she describes. And she also affords a space in which to voice a holy vision. Butler's way of conceiving culture, which is in large part her way of conceiving religion, which is also her way of conceiving politics, seems to add up to a positive breakthrough for almost everyone. Her theory of culture is sound. It syncs up beautifully with a theory of culture allegedly espoused by Jesus of Nazareth in the Synoptic Gospels. I refer here to Jesus' parable of the sower, which is a parable, I mean, who knows, but it seems to at least be a parable about how parables work, how ideas work, how art works. And yes, Butler's novel is all of the above. Like Blake, she touts granular analysis, think grain and seed and soil and roots and blossom and bloom. You'll know us by our fruit. Earthseed is her word for positive obsession. Earthseed is a way of conducting one's bloom in word and deed. Earthseed honors no firewall between art and life. Earthseed invites a mind-body to take more seriously our natural feelings, affections, and intuitions. Hooray for sacred scripture, but also hooray for every creative offering that serves us, even if it hasn't been popularly decreed sacred yet. Hooray for memories and stories and images and lyrics and sayings that accompany us through life outside of what's called organized religion. How about unorganized religion? That's Earthseed. That's a person treasuring what lands as revelation personally within their own interior self. This helps me with the art thing, because I don't want to, no, that doesn't work for me when it helps someone overcome their own fear, whatever it is. Holiness anywhere and everywhere, no need to be shy about it. In fact, we mustn't. Why be obedient to someone else's fear? Why let that fear dictate the size of your life? Not getting talked out of your own truth, your own interior, intuitive self, your feeling self, is the hard work. Butler gives us language for thinking about our creative intuition in relation to the creative intuition of others. When she speaks of shyness, she's describing a fear-driven disinclination to pay heed to one's own soul. This shyness can, I think of Whitman saying, dismiss whatever insults your soul. This shyness can become a form of estrangement from your own best, liveliest, most responsive self. When succumbed to fully, shyness is torment, a form of death in life. The alternative to shyness is genuine self-advocacy, true devotion to the content you love, a commitment to make the most of it by applying. Earthseed, then, is the hodgepodge of holiness discovered, stumbled upon, refined, and developed by Lauren Oya Olamina, the narrative protagonist of the parable of the sower. Chronicling the survival of a community she forms in the year 2024, within what remains of North America following slow and steady climate catastrophe, hastened by an authoritarian political party controlled by foreign interests. I'm sorry. I'm just losing it up here. The story is also a series of dialogues about Earthseed. If the parable of the sower attributed to Jesus of Nazareth can be rightly thought of as a theory of culture, a contemplative tale offering food for thought on what becomes of people and ideas given their different contexts, different soils, which can involve withering away, getting eaten up, or with sufficient moisture thriving and bearing fruit. Butler's novel is further contemplation on and beyond Jesus' contemplation. I'm going to mention that Toni Morrison's Beloved does a similar thing with the passage that opens Beloved from Romans. Lauren follows Marx's dictum, the critique of religion is the prerequisite of every critique, by letting her interlocutors shape her own read on her own study, but also impromptu ideas. An illuminating oracle, after all, can come from any quarter. There is no hierarchy in holiness. In one exchange, she notes the practical benefit of praying to God, if one wants to, but bristles at the suggestion that Earthseed has any investment at all in unexamined worship. I would say for her and for me, the unexamined religion is not worth having. Earthseed, this is Butler Viola. Earthseed deals with ongoing reality, not with supernatural authority figures. Worship is no good without action. With action, it's only useful if it steadies you, focuses your efforts, eases your mind. Earthseed is, in this sense, equal opportunity artfulness, eminently practical, cosmic plain speak, open to all comers, available to anyone and everyone who expends the effort of paying attention. Lauren describes it as a consciously communal form of positive obsession. I wish I could believe that it was all supernatural and that I'm getting messages from God, but then I don't believe in that kind of God. All that I do is observe and take notes, trying to put things down in ways that are as powerful, as simple, and as direct as I feel it. I want to note she's not resistant to inspiration, Holy Spirit, all that. But it's she's ambivalent about it. You'll know them by the fruit. While Earthseed is always adapting, it isn't a novel form or a peculiarly innovative term in human history. Lauren is committed to experiencing her fellow survivors, even those possessed by catastrophically toxic ideas about self, God, and others, as fellow pilgrims who've also assembled their workaday visions of self, others, and divinity out of that which has been traditioned down to them by, for better or worse. And Butler herself, though not identifying as religious, often said, and this is a quote, "I'm glad I was raised as a Baptist because I got my conscience installed early. I've been around people who don't have one and they're damn scary." So it's not a pro or anti-religion thing. It's a way of conceiving as both the opiate of the masses in some contexts, but also the poetry of the people. Depends on the religion. Like, what religion are we talking about? What politics are we talking about? Media. Religion, politics, and media as unexamined abstractions kind of get us nowhere, it seems to me. And at one point, she gets into a conversation with someone, and she talks about how she's understanding Earthseed more, and someone she's talking to says, "Well, you invented Earthseed." And she says, "No, not invented, discovered, understood. Stumbling across the truth isn't the same as making things Earthseed, she explains, is about discovering and acting upon the essentials, which will sometimes differ between people, experiences, soils, and other contexts, but which also often prove alarmingly common. Let us compare our personal mythologies. I'll show you my perceived necessity if you show me yours. The human investigation into living things is ongoing. Liturgy, lyric, legend, lore. Ideology, doctrine. Sure, if we want to call them that, but there's more than one way to believe and receive the art that's been traditioned down to us. More than one way to level with ourselves. When the content is healing, it must be revealing. Here's a little adage for the believer or the never believer. Whatever lore helps you love yourself and others more is lore enough. I'd love to hear from all of you on that. And no, but it's not lore, it's doctrine. Oh, if that's what you want to call it. Great. Whatever serves. And I'm actually borrowing from Spinoza here, who said, however you need to interpret Scripture to increase your love of justice, neighbor. That's it. Go literal with that passage if that helps you love your neighbor more. And if you can, whatever it takes. The job then is to exercise freedom of intuition, conduct your gloom, and the noise and whip of the whirlwind, as Gwendolyn Brooks once put it. This means remaining open to incoming data, attending to available energies, resisting the reigning forms of dysfunction, but minding the minute particulars with deep trust in your own passions. I think of Keats, who spoke of the holiness of the heart's affections. Body and soul, body and soul. Eno has framed religion as a set of pragmatic collages of human stories created either for control or reassurance or social cohesion. And Eno weirdly says, I don't believe in God, but I do believe in religion. I believe in the power of humans to imagine into existence something bigger than any of them individually, something that holds them together and makes them coherent and gives them strength and beauty, love and care. Religion is a way of imagining community into being. I hear in this a lively recognition of lifelines, literal and figurative, and very much both at once. Ways of caring and feeling and knowing our own weight, our own emotional intelligence, art within and without. Good faith laid up and left available to be picked up and improved upon by the living. There's an inventory of human honesty, joy and lamentation, and love and grief and humor all around us. We can draw on this witness of others with others. And I think too of Adrian Rich, who said truthfulness anywhere means a heightened complexity. I believe this. I look for noticer supremes everywhere. I collect and amplify it. There have been so many beautiful efforts. The poetic, prophetic intelligence of the heart's affections, documented publicly, comes to us in drawings, sayings, jokes, rumors, masterworks, family albums, architecture, scripture, and also the internet. Earthseed names the depth and dignity of our individual experience while registering and carrying forward as well the integrating acts of those who came before us. I know that I'm running out of time. I don't want to give you all a moment to talk about Earthseed, but I'll say, as I said I would, I believe with the Yiddish proverb that the heart is half prophet. Frederick Douglass also said that there is a prophet, kind of an invisible prophet within everyone that knows what's up. And I don't think anybody's a prophet all the time, but I think the prophetic task is to dramatize the moral failings that we're otherwise compelled to abide and normalize in some way. So the prophetic task is to dramatize in big, small ways, public, private, and homes maybe. Dramatize the moral failures that we otherwise abide as normal. So let's do the thing where y'all talk about Earthseed a little bit shorter this time. How are we doing here? Yeah, just take a moment to talk Earthseed, and then we'll come back and I'll ask for general questions and stuff. A little bit more, because there's some material here that I'm kind of happy with and I believe you'll enjoy. And then I'm going to walk around Donahue style. Because I didn't realize these microphones have been here, but I could have been doing the Donahue thing all along. Earth seed. Where we stand will determine what we see. But there's something singular and sacred in our situatedness, the minute particulars of any one person's vision. Nevertheless, there's magic and counter-magic afoot. Each person's visionary perspective has the potential to enrich anyone and everyone else's. Witness calls to witness. Witness knows no division. In this, Earthseed pairs nicely with Blake's vision of the human form divine. That's every human being who's ever lived, as holy and as a bearer of infinite value. We have, in the human form divine, a relentlessly social vision of profound hospitality and profound self-respect, of insistently conceiving self and others as conduits of wisdom and essential insight. Honest indignation is the voice of God. You maybe know that one from William Blake. What a way of lifting up soul speak. Any old righteously exasperated exhaustion, candor, or curse, or both, breaking out of or into a body-mind's bandwidth. What a handy mantra. Honest indignation is the voice of God. For keeping the doors of perception open to Earthseed, to hearing, receiving, and being. We grow through one another's honesty. We know it when we sense it. And here's the Frederick Douglass quote that I wanted to share with you. Douglass spoke of, quote, a restless, eager, and active curiosity burning within each of us. Vast depths we sense when we feel that there is something more, that the curtain has not yet been lifted. Frederick Douglass's ennobling assertion here builds beautifully on Blake's. This is Douglass. There is a prophet within us, forever whispering that behind the scene lies the immeasurable unseen. It's a healing and revealing way of regarding other people, perhaps especially when we find ourselves at cross purposes and befuddled by one another. Perhaps believing there's a prophet within is one way of keeping the heart and the head open. And I think I will stop there because I want to hear from you all when you see business. So raise your hand and I will come to you with a general question about the whole thing or an observation that was voiced at your table. Here I come.
I wish my wife was here because she preaches a sermon comparative to you. And she is my best portal to reality, I guess. There, in the spirit of differentiation, however, you can see that I heard a sermon 25 years ago that has stayed with me, and I suppose there was an artistic quality to it. He was a Presbyterian minister, and he left a phrase to the audience that day. I was a visiting audience. He says, everything that happens to us is for what God wants to happen through us. And everything that happens through us is for what God wants to happen to us. That damn phrase has stayed with me 25 years. I both believe it and don't believe it. It just doesn't quite feel right, except on the days I need for it to feel right. So, in the spirit of differentiation, I read Amy Jill Levine's book on, let's see, she writes from a perspective of a historian, she says. And she's one of the leading New Testament scholars in the world, I guess. And I look at what it's like for her to describe Jesus from a Jewish perspective. And her knowledge is not art per se. It is an effort, Tom, to create history, to recognize what history is, who Jesus was, but from a Jewish perspective. So people come to us and they talk about something that is real to them, often historical in nature. In the spirit of differentiation, there was a George Washington, there was a Robin Kaufman, my father, there was a Helen Kaufman, my mother. They were historical, real people. So the sermon seems to me limited in one sense when you use the word just art. Hear me?
Yeah, I love the question. I didn't choose that wording. I don't like just art any more than I like that's just religion or that's just politics. I don't want to say it's just witness because witness is kind of a bigger word to me. Yeah. I know I am resolved. There was a time, I'll throw this in, there was a time coming out of the Church of Christ that I was so tied to a particular read of Scripture that I argued that the thief on the cross, who had not been baptized, to whom Jesus said, "Together you will be with me in paradise," that we know that Jesus must have had a kind of scanner on him where he could tell that the guy had been baptized, otherwise he wouldn't have told him that he was going to heaven. So I have that kind of anxiety within me over consistency and all of that. I guess I want to say I don't know that there is a difference because I don't want to. Not just art. It is witness. It is witness to something real, and I don't think of truth. I think there is of what actually happened, rather than it all being kind of fanciful or just guesswork in some sense. I don't know if that helps at all. But you want to say more about the difference, possibly?
No, I understand nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say this too.
I'm a lonely pilgrim.
Okay. My son was taking a Bible class with Marty Bell here at Belmont, and he called me, was struggling with something Jesus says in Luke, and I said, well, what Jesus meant was, and I just did a quick one, and then it bothered me for the next hour, and I called him back and said, listen, I misspoke. I want to follow Jesus. I'm committed to Jesus, but I never want to have said that I know what Jesus meant. I want to leave it to interpretation, to the survival of the freshest, better read on what Jesus was and what it meant. Not just art, but witness, relationship. The just is Eno's word more than it's mine, I want to say. You have more? Does anybody have something on any of this? Yes.
I would say that behind that phrase that everything that happens to us, there is an ideology of sorts that I feel so questionable about Calvinistic understandings of the world and of ultimate reality. So that's why I kind of crave for something that I could hold on to a little tighter.
I too crave for this. I resist any ideology that suggests that we should not grieve what you intended for evil, the Joseph bit, God intended for good, as in God's going to bend these things and heal and turn things around in such a way that that which served divine purpose ends up somehow. But I don't want to do we're being, oh, this is a big one. I don't accept the idea, sorry to get into weeds like this, but there was a time when I might have worried that when I was down, that is God hardening my heart the way God is said to have hardened Pharaoh's heart, kind of stuff. So that's a verse that it's very important in our Bible class to look at and talk about in such a way, lest they read into that part of the Exodus story. God purposefully putting people in places of despair in some way. That just doesn't work for me. Or Saul and David, that kind of stuff. If that's at all. There's a hand over here. We still have found time. We're going all right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about this and thinking about how the art that it's hard to live in the not knowing.
Yeah.
It's hard to live in the mystery. It's easier if I can make a meaning of that, if I can say what it is. And I was recalling a story I heard, and I vaguely know where it comes from, but I have retained this story that there once was a man who attended a dance recital and saw this woman dance this beautiful dance and was moved to tears by her dance. And afterwards he went to her and he says, "Tell me, what does this dance mean?" And she says, "If I could define that for you, I would not have to dance." And I think so many times we want to reduce it to, well, what does that mean? And what am I supposed to do? Or what's that, what's the purpose? And living in the mystery and the not knowing is hard. There's something about soul speak that when we can be in touch with that and remain open to what the possibilities are, we learn more than when we have to define it in a very narrow way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it landing differently for different people. A song, whenever someone speaks of a film or a song having a message, I always think, no, that propaganda has a kind of message. But art, story, song, they are their own form of witness, and they're going to mean something different with every play. I was trying to get my mom to read Cormac McCarthy's The Road the other day, and I said, a lot of people have read Cormac McCarthy's The Road, but The Road has never experienced you as a reader. Like it's never had you read, and it's going to be like nothing The Road has experienced before. And I think we do, that's people, that's expression. I offer words. I can choose my words, but I can't control what the words mean to anybody else. And there's a vulnerability to that with art. But it's essential. There's a vulnerability to that with Scripture. But it's kind of how it goes, I think. Someone else? Earthseed talk question?
I'd just like to put in a good word for all the artists in this room. We are in an audacious business. When you think about every day having individuals, couples, families, whomever we're working with, come into our offices because something hurts badly and they can't handle it. And trying to co-create solutions, kind of co-create connection, trying to co-create what happens in that room is just an audacious thing. I was just thinking here about what it means to be an artist. And I would say thank you all very much because you are all artists. And I am too. And I will.
So I want to follow up on that bit, because I was remembering a few years ago, several years ago, at Canoga, we had a theme of his time with us was that the therapy was improvisation jazz. And I remember one of the things he did was that he would invite someone up to the piano and have them sit down and just say their name. And then he would interpret his experience of them saying their name.
And then talk about their experience.
And I remember I went up and did that, and I wept listening to what he played. I mean, it just touched me so deep. And I think that that's one of the things that we do for people is we listen to them speak their stories to us, and we interpret that back to them as best we can. And yeah, we're artists.
Yes, here we go.
And I'm just adding, if you don't mind me adding on to yours, which is, and we hold them when we can interpret it, or we hold them.
Exactly.
This is fantastic and very, very edifying and inspiring. Somebody else with a word, a question or remark? I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that.
So, I know our words are just, our language is metaphor, they're metaphors for our experiences. So, but the word that's coming up to me when you talk about, when you were talking about art and the creative process and that, untouchable thing, that revelation that happens within all of us. And I think you were saying, that it brings wholeness, and that made me think of salvation, and that art is salvation. And then also in the clinical experience, this co-creation with the clients to a more whole reality for them is a form of salvation that is created.
I think so. I have a little bit of a Shakespeare one that I think applies. In Midsummer Night's Dream, some character says that the poet, but it could just as well be the artist, bodies forth forms of things unknown and gives an airy nothing a local habitation in the name. The poet bodies forth forms of things unknown and gives to airy nothing a local habitation in the name. To come up with names for the feeling, language that fits the feeling. Because I know until I have language, till I write it out sometimes. I don't know what to do with feelings. To give images, anecdotes, analogies, stories, verses, can make us, restore us, can make us whole. And I do think of that as, it's interesting. Yeah, I think that is salvation. Salvation is wholeness, can do a lot of work for people who are in a place of despair with a very limited understanding of what salvation might be, getting saved. Thank you for that. Someone else? Maybe we are finishing time. But let me say, I'm in Nashville. My email, y'all got my email. Know that I'm around and I'm interested in keeping at it with anything you want to talk about. And I'm just so honored that y'all want me for this. What a lift up. We have a hangover here.
Are you sharing, is this part of a book or an article that where we can read it again and think it through some way?
Yeah, so it is not, I'm doing a new version of an old book. I wrote a book called Everyday Apocalypse. The Sacred Revealed in the Simpsons Radiohead and other pop culture icons. That book, the publisher wasn't going to print it anymore, so I said, give me my copyright back, and Vanderbilt's going to do a new one. So some of that is from the new version of that book. So in time there will be Everyday Apocalypse, Art, Empire, and the End of the World. So some of what I drew from was my attempt to revise that book. And then I've got other books. Got a Substack. I'm on Twitter. All those things. But know that I'm available. You can find my email. I love talking about these things. Thank you so much for having me.
I wasn't sure what to expect tonight. That was challenging, stretching our minds. Thank you so much, David. Just give another round of applause. And tomorrow morning, there's going to be a delicious full breakfast here at 8:45. So please come for breakfast. Registration opens up at 8:30. And starting at 9:30-ish, we'll have our Interfaith panel. And that's going to be a great time. Look forward to Dr. David Thornton moderating that panel with an imam, a rabbi, and a nun. So it's going to be a really interesting time tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Social hour. Is there anything else? Any other announcements? Scott? Good? All right. Take care.